We've got some breaking news from 100 Thieves. They've officially added Priestahh to their starting lineup and have added Crowder as their new head coach. Now, they both joined 100 Thieves on loan from FaZe Clan ahead of the 2019 CWL Pro League. Now, this is a big deal, right? The reason why that is because Fero was confirmed in the announcement as the new substitute. And we know Fero, previously of the 100 Thieves starting lineup, was actually on the roster, so he pretty much goes from a starting position now to a substitute, as Priestahh will now be in the new 5-man lineup. Now, to talk quickly about substitutes, because I've seen quite a few people on Twitter questioning what exactly are the implications, what exactly are the roles of the players in this situation. I want to kind of go over a few things. Now, each team is required to have one substitute throughout the Pro League. That player can be used as much as the team wants. However, the substitute will have to miss any AM circuit matches or any 2Ks for that week, and the team does have to notify League Ops 1 week ahead of using the substitute. So there could be a few issues if a substitute player wants to be in the AM circuit, if they want to play in 2Ks, earn some pro points, etc. There could be some conflicting issues if they do have a separate organization, etc. So those are a few problems that we could see for a few other players if they, like I said, if they wanted to be in the Pro League, but if they also wanted to be in the AM circuit, we could see a few conflicting problems between organizations, etc. Now, the moves we've seen already regarding substitutes, for the most part, has been somewhat harmless, right? We've seen EG pick up GodRx. We've seen Splice add Happy to their lineup. However, many teams are adding these players strictly as a backup, right? If someone's sick, if someone is on vacation, whatever it may be, they're pretty much adding those players strictly as a backup, not as a permanent player in the starting lineup. Now, many didn't really kind of think of this initially, that there could be somewhat of a mini roster mania with this sixth player being added to every team. 100 Thieves clearly showed awareness of that and pretty much took advantage of this situation being the case. Now, not taking advantage necessarily in a bad way, but pretty much utilizing the system the way that it was intended to be. Now, this particular change, not necessarily of Priestahh going to 100T, but a change within 100 Thieves has been a rumor for a while. And the reason why that is because they need a change, right? This particular player in Priestahh makes sense by going to 100 Thieves. The communication and the internal problems that have been going on with 100T, I mean, these have been Twitch clips. These have been YouTube videos with hundreds of thousands of views on them because this team just doesn't get along, right? They just don't get along with one another. And this isn't really a shock that we're seeing them make a change right here and right now. And like I said, along with the running issue that they can't get along, we've seen role issues come about. Enable, we've been hearing a number of different things saying Enable needs help. He needs another person to kind of get involved in the conversation. We've seen Kenny want to run a Maddox instead of a SOG. We've seen Fero want the Maddox. We've seen Octane needing the ICR. I mean, the role issues have been just another kind of story, another chapter to the overall novel that has been this argument going on within the 100 Thieves roster. So for me, this isn't necessarily a surprise that we've seen 100 Thieves see the struggles that they've had. I mean, there are some times when you put a 5-man roster together and they just don't work, right? And we've seen this in other esports in the past. You put just a group of really talented players, and sometimes they just don't mesh. Now, in previous, what we've seen in Call of Duty has been 4v4, and we go back to like Black Ops 3, we go back to even Infinite Warfare, and the major thing was, hey, chemistry is important, but it's really about having a group of slayers, and the chemistry didn't necessarily always need to be there. We saw Octogaming win a championship, a world championship back in IW, and I'm pretty sure players throughout most of the year were at each other's throats. So far, what we've seen in Black Ops 4, that hasn't been the case, right? You need to have teamwork. You need to have chemistry. You almost might, to a point, sacrifice slang to make sure the team works out the way that they're supposed to. And we're going to see groups like 100 Thieves struggle due to not knowing that ahead of Black Ops 4. And 5v5 has really taught us a lot. Now, I'm personally a huge fan of this change. By adding Priestahh to the team, I think he proved himself at the PLQ on a number of different ways. And for the most part, he showed his versatility, right? He comes into the PLQ running an ICR in place of methods, right? FaZe drops methods. They pick up Celium. It was a controversial decision. However, the big picture was that, hey, we're going to see Priestahh go back to the ICR. As the event goes on, they start seeing some, negatives toward the beginning of the tournament. We see him swap to a Maddox, and by the end of the event, he is playing with the SOG. He goes from an ICR to a Maddox to a SOG. He ultimately proved himself to the entire Call of Duty community that he can be incredibly versatile because he was playing super well with all 3 weapons. I think he finishes by definition second among the overall KD just behind Celium. But to think that he was playing consistently well with 3 different weapons, and he was only practicing with 1 heading into the PLQ. Now, before I talk on Priestahh and the 100 Thieves roles, I have to say I love this move by Priestahh being added to the team almost or pretty much just as much as I love Crowder being added to this roster. And here are a few positives that I think that Crowder is going to provide for this team in regards to being the coach. I think Enable has needed a secondary person for a while, right? We've talked about all the communication problems, and I personally have said in the past, there has never been a more designated IEGL, probably in Call of Duty history, than there has been with Enable and the previous 100T roster. I mean, he was there to try to work out these players, to try to get them to work together, to try to get them on, etc., and it just clearly didn't work. There were too many personalities, and so the fact that we see Crowder now being added to the roster, and with the recent announcement by Adam Apicella on Twitter basically saying that the coach now will have a headset to talk to teams in between maps, etc., that's only going to give the coach pretty much more of a role than he previously had, right? The analytics and whatnot that came from that, they're almost now more important because now you have a coach that gets added to the roster, and you have a coach that can now pretty much voice his opinion from time to time. Another thing that I love about Crowder is that he's also going to make this team very disciplined, right? We know by his personality that we've seen him previous, he knows how to make a team disciplined. And he's done this before, right? He's already been a coach. We talked about, in titles previously, he was FaZe Clan's coach. He got added to this roster heading into World War II. He's done this before. He's already been in this position in the past. Another positive with him is that he's already friends with Priestahh, right? He helped bring in Priestahh to the scene. He helped bring this guy up and pretty much handpicked him to add him to the lineup. And one thing that I love about, regarding replays his previous career, or if you want to talk about Crowder, right, has been the factor of he knows how to scout young talent. The entire FaZe Clan lineup was pretty much a handle on what Crowder has done in his previous career, right? He helped to bring up Zuma. He helped bring up Attach. He pretty much handpicked Priestahh, and he was a very big factor in the choosing of Celium to get added to the roster. So if you're 100 Thieves, and granted he is on loan toward the end of this year, that's a guy where I'd be looking at and saying, well, maybe we could get a little bit more worth out of him coming in to next title with franchising potentially on the horizon, academy teams. I mean, he can really be a huge factor for this team to get more worth as time goes on. So I think for Crowder, it's not just about this year, because I think he's really going to help the lineup improve and to kind of get that chemistry back to where it should be, and that voice that's going to pretty much get them, on a different page. But I think he's also going to be a really big contributing factor to adding future talent for years to come, because he's already done it in the past. He knows what to look for, and there's a lot of young talent who are coming up right now. The PLQ showed us there's a lot of young talent who are almost maybe even just as good as some of the Pro League teams, so that's definitely going to be a big factor. Now, I think as far as positives right now for 100 Thieves, I think this will be for the 3 other players, even Enable included, right? This is going to be a breath of fresh air, right? You have a totally different team for the most part. You now have 3 voices instead of 1. You have a newly added versatile player who I think is easy to work with. You pretty much rid one of the conflicting personalities, because that was clearly one of the major reasons why he was as a substitute. Not just a role issue, is more of the personality issue. They now have 3 voices, like I said, who are positive instead of just 1, and they pretty much, with that voice change and with the 2 new added players to the roster, this will change the culture of 100T and for the better, right? They have positive voices. They have players who are going to be more comfortable using certain roles, and I think that's ultimately going to change up 100T's overall mentality moving into the rest of the year and when it comes down to the Pro League. Now, a few things that I am interested to see, because I think that the role issues might not end here. I would say maybe even for the first few weeks, it could be a little bit of an issue for 100T to kind of get these things set in stone, because previously Priestahh has been known as an AR. I mean, for God's sake, at the PLQ, he came into that running an ICR. Slasher and Octane, I mean, they both run an ICR and a Maddox, so they're not going to be giving that up. Kenny has made it very clear that he wants to run the Maddox as well, so that's going to be out of the picture. So I'm interested to see how that is pretty much taken care of, and how Crowder's overall coaching is going to kind of be brought into that, and how that's going to mend that situation, because I think it could be a little bit of an issue. I know Priesthah's brought in this team as a SOG. It's just I feel like he isn't proven in that role necessarily as of yet. Granted, he had a great first event, but when it comes to facing off against the LGs, the E Uniteds, the Splices, and the Optic Gamings of the world, How is he going to play in a consistent SOG-only role when he has never ran solely an SMG in his career? I think maybe since Black Ops 3, where I'm pretty sure he ran the VMP most of the time. Granted, in World War II, he was known as one of the best flex players in the world. Definitely top 5, in my opinion. But it's never been a dedicated SMG-only type position. He has been in it in the past, but now how is he going to do it with a new lineup, new faces, and with a new role that he hasn't done probably in his major pro career? Now, I think one thing that's going to be nice for 100 Thieves as well, just adding on the positives right now, is that they're going to be in Division B. So they're going to have some time to work on these roles, work on the team chemistry, work on how the new mentality of this roster moving into the Pro League. They're going to have some time to kind of figure things out. And right now for Kenny, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, right? I mean, clearly he wants to run the Maddox. In that situation, if that was a big contributing factor to who was released, Kenny or Fero as a substitute, I think you got to give it to Kenny. In this instance, he was the 2018, or at least the World War II, right, Pro League MVP, the CWL MVP. He was Rookie of the Year for the CWL. He was a 3-time champion, a runner-up at champs. I mean, he did all of those things. I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt when he says, hey, my shot's better with the Maddox. I want to have this in my hands. So I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt in this particular situation. So I think they're going to have some valuable time to work things out. And I think, honestly, one thing that is nice by having Priestahh is that say, hey, maybe Kenny's role in the Maddox doesn't work out. Okay, well, hey, let's go ahead and swap things out. We'll put Kenny in a SOG. We'll see how he works. We know Priestahh can be good with the Maddox, right? We know he can be good with these weapons. So to kind of have that pretty much in his resume is going to be great for Priestahh and the entire 100T roster moving in. Now, I will say I do believe the PLQ was Crowder's final event playing. Granted, he did make a solid comeback to the competitive scene, playing for FaZe Clan for as long as he did. However, I think this is done here, and I think that he's really going to prove himself as one of the best coaches in the entire Call of Duty World League. I think he has a great mentality. He's, like I said, he has a very impressive resume. He's a world champion. He knows what it's like to be on the biggest stage. He's worked with young talent in the past. He has a great resume built up for this position. So while it is a little bit sad to see him moving from a player role, as he is one of my favorite players to ever play the game, I think it's going to be great to see him transition to what I feel is probably his most valuable position in being in the coaching role at this time. Now I want to talk quickly about what is going on Twitter right now, which is regarding, was Fero the right player to put as a substitute? People were arguing, well, maybe it should be Kenny. Maybe it should even be Slasher. Maybe Enable shouldn't even be in the lineup because clearly he's not the best Slayer on the roster. Now, I will say, like I said, regarding, I think you have to keep Enable on the team. That, to me, isn't even a conversation. Between Fero and Kenny, like I said, I think you got to give it to the guy who had an incredible achievements last year. That slang was no joke. And granted, World War II to Black Ops 4, totally different titles. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt. So that is my argument regarding that particular situation. My take, though, on Fero being substituted despite earning a qualification spot is that by signing a contract originally, you agree that the organization has power over you, right? They had the decision to orchestrate, put the roster however they want. If they wanted to drop the entire team moving into the first opportunity for roster changes in the Pro League, the third of the way through the season, they can do that. They can do whatever they want to. So by signing a contract, you are liable to whatever 100T wants to do. They own the spot, and that was known. It's not a surprising factor to anybody. They own the spot, and while the implications may not be ideal for everyone, it's a business. 100T wants to get better. They want to improve as an organization. They want to improve in Call of Duty, and as a player on the roster, you have to be understanding of that. And so while I feel like it may not necessarily be fair because he did earn the spot, he's on a team. The team needs to see improvements, and maybe that means you going to the bench role, which might just have to happen from time to time. That happens in professional sports. It happens as well as in esports. Now, as far as what's next for FaZe, I think right now we've already seen Team Spacely pretty much be locked into an organization as of this point. We've seen Overtime pretty much be in talks with organizations regarding what like UIU, Accelerate, and Midnight. They've made it very clear that they're not going to be selling their spots either. So for FaZe Clan, I think what you do is that you hold on to Celium, Zuma, and Attach, along with Priestahh to an extent. You put those guys on loan to other rosters. Maybe you make some money that way, and you pretty much just hold on till franchising. Maybe you put a few of those players who are substitutes, regarding Celium, Zuma, and Attach, or however combination that you can get. Maybe you play at open tournaments. You try to see some success, but overall, I think their options are limited. I thought that we might see them try to pick a particular group up. I thought that we would really see them make a full-on force to grabbing a team in the Pro League. However, I think that they realize their options are very limited. Maybe they don't want to spend as much cash as you need to right now when it comes down to getting in this year. So maybe they're focusing on next season, because I think FaZe is a major staple in the Call of Duty community and absolutely needs to be involved when it comes to franchising. But yeah, guys, let us know on Twitter by using the hashtag the Esports Dispatch. Get involved in the conversation and let me know by what you think the 100T roster does now, right? Have they improved? Will Priestahh really be a big factor moving forward into the team? And do you think they will see improvements heading into Division B?